The expensive silver Mercedes sat at an angle in the mud, its wheels spinning uselessly as rain pounded against the windshield. Catherine Bennett gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white with fear and frustration. Outside, the Tennessee countryside stretched dark and empty under the storm clouds. She had taken what she thought was a shortcut to Nashville, but the rural road had turned treacherous after the sudden downpour. She tried the gas pedal again. The wheels whirred and threw mud everywhere, but the car sank deeper. Catherine felt panic rising in her chest. Her phone showed no signal. She was miles from anywhere, stuck in mud that reached halfway up her doors. The rain showed no signs of stopping. Through the rain-streaked windows, Catherine saw headlights approaching. Relief flooded through her. She opened her door with difficulty, mud sucking at it, and stepped out into the storm. Her designer dress and expensive shoes were immediately soaked and filthy. She waved both arms frantically at the approaching SUV. The vehicle slowed. Catherine's heart lifted. But then it sped up again and drove right past her, splashing more mud onto her already ruined outfit. Catherine stood there in shock, rain streaming down her face. The driver had looked right at her and kept going. 10 minutes later, another car approached. This time Catherine ran into the middle of the road, waving desperately. The sedan swerved around her and disappeared into the rain. Then came a pickup truck. Catherine jumped and shouted, but the driver just honked and drove away faster. Then a minivan. Then another SUV. Each time, drivers looked at her expensive car, her muddy designer clothes, and drove away without stopping. Catherine sank to her knees in the mud beside her car, tears mixing with rain on her face. She had never felt so alone, so invisible. Here she was, the wife of one of Nashville's most successful businessmen, and nobody cared enough to stop. The storm grew stronger, and darkness was falling. Catherine wrapped her arms around herself and wondered if she would spend the night out here in the cold and rain. She thought about her husband Thomas waiting for her at home. He would be worried. She imagined him running his fingers over his watch face, the way he did when he was anxious. Thomas had been blind since birth, but he saw people more clearly than anyone she knew. He always said that kindness was the truest measure of a person's character. Catherine wondered if any kindness existed on this lonely road. Another set of headlights appeared in the distance. Catherine did not bother to stand up this time. She just watched as the old pickup truck approached, expecting it to pass like all the others. But then something unexpected happened. The truck slowed down. It pulled over onto the muddy shoulder. The door opened. Would you stop to help a stranger stuck in the mud, or would you drive past like everyone else? Subscribe and comment what you would do in this situation. A young black girl in jeans and a bright blue raincoat climbed out of the pickup truck. She could not have been more than 20 years old. She ran through the rain toward Catherine, her sneakers splashing through puddles. Are you okay? The girl called out, genuine concern in her voice. Catherine looked up, surprised by the warmth in those words. My car is stuck. I have been here for almost an hour. You are the first person to stop. The girl helped Catherine to her feet. I am Shanice. Let me see what we can do about your car. Shanice walked around the Mercedes, examining how deep it had sunk into the mud. She shook her head. This is pretty stuck. But my truck has a tow strap. We can try to pull you out. You would do that? Catherine asked, amazed. Of course, Shanice said simply, as if there was no question about it. Nobody should be stranded out here. Shanice ran back to her truck and returned with a heavy tow strap and some wooden planks she kept in the bed of her pickup. She worked quickly and efficiently, placing the planks under Catherine's wheels to give them traction. She attached the tow strap to the Mercedes and then to her own truck. Okay, when I start pulling, you give it some gas, but not too much, Shanice instructed. We do not want to dig deeper. Catherine got back into her car, marveling at this stranger's competence and kindness. Through the rain, she watched Shanice climb into the old pickup truck. The girl was soaked through, her clothes clinging to her thin frame. She clearly did not have much money, judging by her worn sneakers and the rust spots on her truck. Yet she had stopped when no one else would. Shanice's truck started pulling. Catherine pressed the gas pedal gently. The wheels caught on the planks. The car moved an inch, then another. Slowly, with Shanice's truck straining and pulling, the Mercedes began to emerge from the mud. After 5 long minutes, Catherine's car was back on solid ground. Both women got out of their vehicles. Catherine wanted to hug this girl who had saved her, but she settled for gripping both of Shanice's muddy hands in hers. "Thank you," Catherine said, tears in her eyes again. "Thank you so much. What can I do to repay you?" Shanice smiled, raindrops running down her face. "You do not need to repay me. I am just glad I could help. You should probably follow me back to the highway. This road only gets worse ahead." "At least let me give you money for gas," Catherine insisted, reaching for her purse. "No need," Shanice said. "Just help someone else when you get the chance. That is how we make the world better." Catherine watched as Shanice walked back to her truck. The girl had asked for nothing, expected nothing. She had stopped because it was the right thing to do. Catherine made a decision in that moment. She called out to Shanice before the girl could drive away. "Wait, please. I need your address, your phone number. I want to properly thank you." Shanice hesitated. Catherine could see she was uncomfortable accepting anything. But finally, Shanice wrote her information on a piece of paper and handed it through the rain to Catherine. "My name is Catherine Bennett," Catherine said. "You saved my life tonight, Shanice. I will not forget this." 2 days later, Catherine stood in the massive kitchen of the Bennett mansion in Nashville, holding the piece of paper with Shanice's phone number. She had called that morning and invited Shanice to lunch. The girl had been reluctant at first, but Catherine had insisted. Now she was arriving any minute. Thomas Bennett sat at the kitchen counter, his fingers tracing the braille on a cookbook he was reading. At 55, he was still handsome, with graying hair and a kind face. His blindness had never slowed him down. He had built a technology company from nothing and sold it for millions. Now he ran a foundation that helped students and entrepreneurs. "You are nervous," Thomas observed. He could always read Catherine's moods, even without seeing her. "I want this to go well," Catherine admitted. This girl, Shanice, she was the only one who stopped. The only one out of maybe 20 cars. Thomas reached out and found Catherine's hand. "Then she is someone worth knowing." The doorbell rang. Catherine hurried to answer it. And there was Shanice, looking uncomfortable in clean jeans and a bright green sweater. She held a small bouquet of grocery store flowers. "These are for you," Shanice said shyly, "to thank you for inviting me." Catherine felt her heart warm. This girl had so little, yet she brought a gift. "Come in, please. I want you to meet my husband." Shanice followed Catherine through the beautiful home, her eyes wide at the expensive furniture and artwork. But when they reached the kitchen, her expression changed to one of compassion as she saw Thomas. "You must be Shanice," Thomas said, turning his head toward her voice. "Catherine has not stopped talking about you. Thank you for helping my wife." Shanice shook his hand. Anyone would have done the same thing. "But they did not," Thomas said gently. "Everyone else drove past. You stopped. That tells me who you are." Over lunch, the three of them talked. Shanice told them about her life. She was 20 years old, studying nursing at community college. She worked at a grocery store 3 days a week and cleaned offices on weekends to pay for school. Her mother was a single parent who worked as a home health aide. Shanice had 2 younger siblings still in high school. "I am hoping to become a nurse practitioner eventually," Shanice explained. "There are not enough healthcare providers in my neighborhood. People have to travel an hour to see a doctor. I want to change that." Catherine and Thomas exchanged glances. They both felt the same pull toward this remarkable young woman. "But I might have to take time off from school," Shanice admitted, her voice catching. "The tuition went up, and with my hours cut at the grocery store, I do not know if I can afford next semester." "What if you did not have to worry about that?" Catherine asked quietly. Shanice looked confused. "What do you mean?" Thomas leaned forward. "Shanice, you helped my wife when you had every reason not to. You stopped when everyone else kept going. You gave your time and effort expecting nothing in return. Let us help you now." Shanice sat very still, looking between Catherine and Thomas. The mansion kitchen suddenly felt very quiet except for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. "I do not understand," Shanice said slowly. Catherine reached across the table and took the young woman's hands. "We want to pay for your college. All of it. Tuition, books, Everything you need to finish your nursing degree. Shanice's eyes filled with tears. No, I could not possibly accept that. It is too much. Thomas spoke gently. Shanice, my wife and I have more money than we could spend in 3 lifetimes. We run a foundation that helps people pursue their dreams. But we have never met anyone more deserving than you. Please let us do this. But I just helped pull a car out of the mud, Shanice protested. That is not worth tens of thousands of dollars. It is worth more than that, Catherine said firmly. You showed kindness when everyone else showed indifference. You stopped when you were probably tired from work, when you probably had a dozen other things to do. You are exactly the kind of person we want to support. Shanice wiped her eyes. I do not know what to say. Say yes, Thomas urged. Say you will accept our help and finish your degree. Say you will become the nurse practitioner your community needs. For a long moment, Shanice sat in silence. Catherine could see the war happening inside her, between pride and practical need, between disbelief and hope. Finally, Shanice nodded, and the tears spilled over. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I accept. Thank you. Thank you so much. Catherine stood up and hugged her tightly. Thomas stood too, his hand finding Shanice's shoulder. There is more, Thomas said. We would like you to work part-time at our foundation. We help students and small business owners get started. Your perspective, your story, would be valuable. We will pay you fairly, and it will not interfere with your studies. Shanice could barely speak through her tears. I do not deserve this. You absolutely do, Catherine said. You deserve every good thing. That evening, Shanice sat in her small apartment with her mother, a tired-looking woman named Beverly Williams who worked long hours caring for elderly patients. Shanice told her mother everything that had happened. Beverly held her daughter tight. Baby, this is a blessing. This is God answering my prayers. I have been praying every night that you would not have to quit school. They want to pay for everything, Mama, Shanice said, still in disbelief. And give me a job. Then you accept it with grace and gratitude, Beverly said firmly. And you work hard. You make them proud that they chose you. Shanice nodded. I will, Mama. I promise. The next week, Shanice started her new position at the Bennett Foundation. Catherine showed her around the office, a beautiful space in downtown Nashville with views of the city. The foundation had 12 employees who processed applications, vetted candidates, and managed the programs that help people. We give scholarships to about 50 students a year, Catherine explained. We also provide small business loans and mentorship. We have helped hundreds of people over the last decade. Shanice looked at the files and computer systems with wonder. I had no idea this kind of help existed. Most people do not, Catherine said. That is part of the problem. So many people who need help never even know to ask for it. We want you to help us reach those people. Shanice threw herself into the work. She reached out to churches in her neighborhood, to community centers, to high schools. She told her story and encouraged people to apply for help. Within a month, applications had doubled. Thomas was impressed. You have a gift for this, he told Shanice during a staff meeting. You connect with people because you understand their struggles. 3 months into her work at the foundation, Shanice had transformed how the Bennett Foundation operated. She organized community meetings in neighborhoods the foundation had never reached before. She spoke at churches and schools, sharing her own story of getting help when she needed it most. Catherine often accompanied Shanice to these meetings. She saw neighborhoods she had never visited, despite living in Nashville her whole life. She met families struggling to make ends meet, students working 2 jobs while trying to stay in school, single parents hoping to start small businesses to support their children. I lived in a bubble, Catherine admitted to Shanice one afternoon as they drove back from a community meeting in East Nashville. I thought I understood this city, but I only knew my small part of it. Most people stay in their bubbles, Shanice said without judgment. That is why what you and Mr. Bennett are doing matters so much. You are willing to step outside and see people who are different from you. The 2 women had formed a genuine friendship. Catherine admired Shanice's determination and her refusal to let circumstances define her future. Shanice appreciated Catherine's willingness to learn and her authentic desire to help others. One Saturday, Shanice invited Catherine to her neighborhood for a community cookout. Catherine arrived in casual clothes, leaving her expensive jewelry at home. She met Shanice's mother Beverly, her 16-year-old brother Marcus, and her 14-year-old sister Brittany. "Thank you for helping my daughter," Beverly said, embracing Catherine warmly. "You changed our whole family's life." Catherine felt tears in her eyes. "Shanice changed mine first. She reminded me what really matters." At the cookout, Catherine met dozens of families. She played with children, listened to elderly residents share stories, and ate food from paper plates standing in the grass. By the end of the afternoon, she was sunburned and exhausted but happier than she had been in years. "That was wonderful," she told Thomas that evening. "Everyone was so welcoming, so warm." Thomas smiled. "People usually are when you treat them with respect. We should do more events in different neighborhoods. Really connect with the communities we serve." Catherine agreed. Over the next few weeks, the foundation began hosting events across Nashville. They held application workshops, financial literacy classes, and resume building sessions. Shanice led most of these events, but Catherine and Thomas attended regularly. The foundation's work began to attract attention. Local news stations ran stories about the scholarship program. Newspapers published articles about small businesses that had succeeded with foundation support. The Bennett Foundation became known throughout Nashville as a place where people could find genuine help. But success brought new challenges. The foundation's original budget had been designed to help 50 students a year. Now they were receiving applications from 300 students. Small business loan requests had tripled. "We need to expand," Shanice said at a staff meeting. "There are so many people who need help." Catherine looked at the numbers. "We would need to significantly increase our funding." Thomas drummed his fingers on the table. "Then we increase it. We have the resources. We just need to restructure how we distribute them." "Are you sure?" Catherine asked her husband. "We are talking about millions of dollars." "I am sure," Thomas said firmly. "What good is money if we do not use it to help people? Shanice showed us a need we did not fully see before. Now we need to meet that need." Catherine could not sleep. She lay in bed next to Thomas, thinking about all the applications she had read that day. Students who worked full-time while going to school. Single mothers trying to start businesses. People with talent and drive who just needed someone to believe in them. "You are thinking too loud," Thomas murmured beside her. Catherine laughed softly. "Sorry. I keep thinking about Maria, the woman we met today. She wants to start a catering business, but she needs money for equipment and permits. She has 3 kids and no family support. Her food was amazing at the tasting." "So we help her," Thomas said simply. "But there are 12 other applicants just like her this month," Catherine said. "We cannot help everyone." "Why not?" Thomas asked. Catherine sat up in bed. "What?" Thomas sat up too, reaching for her hand in the dark. "Why can we not help everyone? Or at least, why can we not help significantly more people? We have the money. We have seen the need. What is stopping us from truly making a difference?" "The board," Catherine said. "Some of them think we are already giving away too much. They worry about the foundation's long-term sustainability." "Then we need to show them why this matters," Thomas said. "We need to show them what Shanice showed us. That when you help one person, you help whole families, whole communities." The next morning, Catherine called an emergency board meeting. The Bennett Foundation's board consisted of 8 members, including Catherine and Thomas. The other 6 were successful Nashville businesspeople who had been with the foundation since its inception. At the meeting, Shanice presented her findings. She had spent weeks researching and compiling data. In Davidson County, 23% of residents live below the poverty line, Shanice explained, her voice steady despite her nervousness. Many of these families have the potential to change their circumstances, but they lack access to education and capital. Our foundation currently helps about 50 students and 10 businesses per year, but we receive over 500 qualified applications annually. "We cannot possibly help everyone," said board member Richard Patterson, a retired banker. "We have to maintain fiscal responsibility." "I am not suggesting we help everyone," Shanice continued. But we could help 200 students instead of 50. We could support 30 businesses instead of 10. The Bennetts have committed additional funding. We would not be risking the foundation's stability. Another board member, Helen Morrison, spoke up. I have concerns about growing too quickly. How do we ensure quality control? How do we prevent fraud? Shanice had anticipated this question. We implement a more robust application process. We require regular progress reports. We assign mentors to each recipient. Actually, the more people we help, the easier it becomes to build a community of support where successful recipients help newer ones. Catherine watched the board members' faces. Some looked interested. Others looked skeptical. She knew this moment was crucial. I want to share something personal, Catherine said, standing up. 3 months ago, my car got stuck in mud on a rural road. 20 cars passed me by. 20 people looked at me and decided I was not worth their time. Then Shani stopped. This young woman, who had every reason to keep driving, who probably had better things to do, stopped and helped me. She expected nothing in return. She just helped because it was right. The room was silent as Catherine continued. That moment changed me. I realized I had been like those 20 drivers my whole life. Not cruel, but comfortable. Not uncaring, but disconnected. Shanice reminded me that we are all connected, that helping one person creates ripples that spread far beyond what we can see. Thomas stood beside his wife. I have been blind since birth. I have never seen a face, never seen a sunset, never seen my wife smile. But I have learned to see in other ways. I see people through their actions, their kindness, their generosity. When we help someone pursue their dreams, we are not just changing one life. We are changing families, neighborhoods, entire communities. Mr. Bennett, Mrs. Bennett, we understand your passion, Richard said carefully. But passion does not always make good business sense. Shani stepped forward again. May I share some stories? These are real people we have helped in the past 3 months. Without waiting for permission, Shanice pulled up a slideshow. She showed photos and told stories. Maria, the single mother of 3, had received a small business loan. Her catering company now employed 5 people and was profitable within 6 weeks. Daniel, a veteran struggling with PTSD, had received funding to start a landscaping business. He now employed 3 other veterans and had a waiting list of clients. Shanice showed more examples. A grandmother who received a scholarship to become a certified nursing assistant and now worked at a hospital. A young man who started a mobile car repair service and was earning enough to support his younger siblings. A woman who opened a daycare center in a neighborhood that desperately needed affordable childcare. Every single one of these people was going to be told no, Shani said, her voice growing stronger. Every single one of them would have been another rejection letter, another dream deferred. But we said yes. And look at what happened. Helen Morrison leaned forward. How many people have you helped find employment? Our scholarship recipients have a 94% completion rate, Shanice answered. Of those who completed their programs, 91% found employment within 6 months. Our business loan recipients have a 78% success rate after 3 years, which is significantly higher than the national average. The board members looked at each other. Richard pulled out his calculator and started running numbers. Helen asked detailed questions about the application process and vetting procedures. The meeting stretched from 1 hour to 3. Finally, Richard spoke. I move that we approve the expansion. The data is compelling, and the Bennetts have shown they are willing to fund this appropriately. One by one, the other board members voted. When the final tally came in, the motion passed 6-2. The Bennett Foundation would expand its reach dramatically. Catherine hugged Shanice. Thomas shook hands with the board members. But the real celebration came the next day when they announced the expansion at a community meeting. Over 300 people packed into a church gymnasium in North Nashville. Families who had applied for help, students hoping for scholarships, business owners with dreams. When Catherine announced that the foundation would be helping 200 students and 30 businesses in the coming year, the room erupted in cheers and applause. A woman in the back stood up. Thank you. Thank you for seeing us. Thank you for believing we matter. Her words hung in the air, and Catherine felt tears stream down her face. This was why they were doing this. Not for recognition or praise, but because every person in this room mattered. Every dream deserved a chance. Over the next few weeks, applications poured in. The foundation staff worked overtime to process them all. They hired 3 additional employees, including Shanice's mother Beverly, who joined as a community outreach coordinator. The expansion was proceeding smoothly until a Nashville newspaper published an editorial questioning the Bennett Foundation's rapid growth. The article, written by a prominent business columnist, suggested that the foundation was being financially reckless and that the Bennetts were more interested in publicity than sustainable charity. The editorial caused ripples. 2 of the board members who had voted against the expansion, Richard Patterson and another member named Douglas Green, called for another meeting. They wanted to revisit the expansion decision. Catherine was furious when she read the editorial. This is ridiculous. Our finances are sound. We have been completely transparent about everything. Thomas remained calm. The writer is entitled to his opinion. But we need to address these concerns directly. We cannot let doubt and fear derail what we have started. At the emergency board meeting, Richard and Douglas presented their case. They argued that the negative publicity could hurt fundraising efforts. They worried that the foundation was growing too fast to maintain quality control. We need to slow down, Richard insisted. Maybe help 100 students instead of 200. Test the expansion more carefully. That means telling 100 qualified students no, Shanice said quietly. 100 people who hoped they would finally get a chance. Better to help fewer people, well, than many people, Polly, Douglas countered. Catherine stood up. I think we need to hear from the people we have helped. Let them speak for themselves. She had come prepared. Over the next hour, 6 people came into the boardroom and shared their stories. Maria talked about how her catering business had grown beyond her wildest dreams. Daniel, the veteran, spoke about how starting his landscaping company had given him purpose and helped him manage his PTSD. A young woman named Ashley told how a scholarship had allowed her to become a medical assistant, and she was now the first person in her family to have a career instead of just a job. Then Beverly Williams spoke. 6 months ago, I was working 60-hour weeks as a home health aide, barely making ends meet. I was watching my brilliant daughter consider dropping out of college. I felt like I had failed as a mother. Then Catherine and Thomas helped Shanice. And then they hired me. Now I have a job that uses my skills to help others. My daughter is thriving in school. My younger children see that education matters. You did not just help one person. You changed my whole family's trajectory. The board members listened in silence. When Beverly finished, Helen Morrison spoke up. I think we are forgetting something important. Yes, there are risks in expanding quickly. But there are also risks in moving too slowly. Every day we delay is another day that qualified people do not get help they desperately need. I agree, said another board member named Patricia Holmes. I have been reviewing the financials carefully. The Bennetts have committed sufficient funds to sustain this expansion for at least 5 years, even if outside donations decrease. This is not reckless. This is ambitious, yes, but it is also achievable. Richard looked uncomfortable. I am just trying to protect the foundation's future. So are we, Thomas said gently. But we define that future differently. You see risk. We see opportunity. You see financial exposure. We see human potential. The debate continued for another hour. Finally, a vote was called. This time, the expansion was upheld by a vote of 7-1, with only Douglas voting against it. Richard abstained. After the meeting, Richard approached Catherine. I still have concerns, but I can see this matters deeply to you. I will support the decision. Catherine shook his hand. Thank you. I know you are trying to do what is best. What would you do if you had the power to help hundreds of people, but faced criticism and doubt? Subscribe to see how this story of courage and compassion continues. 2 years passed. The Bennett Foundation's expansion had exceeded everyone's expectations. They had helped over 400 students complete their education and supported 60 small businesses. The negative publicity had faded, replaced by story after story of lives transformed. Shanice Williams stood in her apartment, adjusting the cap and gown she would wear to her college graduation that afternoon. She looked at herself in the mirror and could hardly believe how much had changed since that rainy night when she had stopped to help a stranger stuck in the mud. She was about to graduate with honors and a nursing degree. She had a job offer from Vanderbilt Hospital, and she had helped create a program that had changed hundreds of lives. None of it seemed real. "You ready, baby?" Beverly called from the living room. She was dressed up, proud and beaming. "Almost, Mama," Shanice called back. At the graduation ceremony, the community college auditorium was packed with families. Shanice spotted the Bennetts in the third row, Thomas in a navy suit and Catherine in a bright maroon dress. They had insisted on attending, treating it like it was their own daughter's graduation. When Shanice's name was called, the Bennetts stood and cheered along with Beverly and Shanice's siblings. Shanice crossed the stage, accepted her diploma, and felt tears of joy streaming down her face. She had done it. Against all odds, with help from people who believed in her, she had done it. But the ceremony was not over. The Dean of Students stepped to the microphone. "We have a special honor today. One of our graduates will be giving a brief address. Shanice Williams, please come to the podium." Shanice had not expected this. She walked to the podium on shaking legs, looking out at hundreds of faces. "2 years ago, I was ready to quit school," she began, her voice soft at first but growing stronger. "I could not afford tuition. I was working every hour I could, but it was not enough. I felt like I was failing, like my dreams were too big for someone like me." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "Then one rainy night, I saw someone who needed help. A woman stuck in the mud. I stopped because my mama raised me to help people when I could. I did not know that stopping would change my life." Shanice looked at Catherine and Thomas. "That woman and her husband decided to help me. Not because they had to, not because I earned it, but because they saw potential in me that I did not see in myself. They paid for my education. They gave me a job. They believed in me when I did not believe in me." The auditorium was completely quiet. But the best part is that they did not just help me. They helped hundreds of people. They created a program that gives people a chance to chase their dreams. And they taught me something important. Kindness creates more kindness. Help creates more help. When you lift one person up, you start a chain reaction that spreads further than you can imagine. Shanice's voice grew passionate. "I want to challenge everyone here today. Do not wait until you are rich to help people. Do not wait until you have everything figured out. If you see someone who needs help, stop. Just stop. Because you never know how one small act of kindness might change everything." 5 years after that rainy night on the rural Tennessee road, Catherine Bennett stood at the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the Williams Community Health Center. The bright red ribbon stretched across the entrance of the new building in North Nashville, and a crowd of over 200 people gathered to celebrate. Shanice stood beside Catherine, wearing scrubs and a white coat. At 27, she had completed her nurse practitioner degree and had spent the last year working to open this free clinic in her neighborhood. The Bennett Foundation had provided the funding, but Shanice had done the hard work of building it. "This has been my dream since I was a little girl," Shanice said into the microphone. "Growing up, I watched my neighbors struggle to get basic health care. People would wait until they were really sick because they could not afford to see a doctor. I promised myself that if I ever became a nurse, I would serve my community." She looked at the building behind her, a renovated storefront that now held examination rooms, a small pharmacy, and a community education space. "This clinic will serve anyone who walks through the doors, regardless of their ability to pay. We will offer primary care, wellness education, and connection to resources people need." Catherine watched with pride as Shanice cut the ribbon. The crowd cheered, and people streamed into the building for tours. Beverly Williams worked as the clinic's patient coordinator. Marcus, Shanice's brother, had just graduated with a degree in public health and would work as a community health educator. Even young Brittany, now 19 and in college on a Bennett Foundation scholarship, volunteered at the clinic on weekends. Thomas found Catherine's hand and squeezed it. "We did good," he said softly. "Shanice did good," Catherine corrected. "We just gave her the opportunity." "We gave each other opportunities," Thomas replied. "She reminded us what matters." We helped her achieve her dreams. That is how it should work. Later that day, there was a small party at the Bennett mansion for close friends and family. Shanice arrived with a young man named Christopher Hayes, a teacher she had been dating for 2 years. Catherine could see how Christopher looked at Shanice, with love and admiration. "I have news," Shanice announced shyly. She held up her left hand, showing a simple but beautiful engagement ring. "Christopher asked me to marry him last night." The room erupted in celebration. Catherine hugged Shanice tightly. "I am so happy for you. You and Mr. Bennett will come to the wedding, right?" Shanice asked. "I mean, I would not even be here if not for you." "We would not miss it for anything," Thomas said warmly. 6 months later, Catherine and Thomas sat in the front row of a small church in North Nashville, watching Shanice marry Christopher. Beverly cried happy tears. Marcus and Brittany stood up as witnesses. The Bennett Foundation had helped Christopher pay off his student loans as a wedding gift, and the young couple was starting their married life without the burden of debt. At the reception, Catherine found herself reflecting on the past 5 years. The foundation now helped over 800 people annually. They had expanded to 3 other Tennessee cities. Dozens of businesses had been started, hundreds of students had graduated, and entire neighborhoods had been transformed. But more than the numbers, Catherine thought about the relationships. She thought about Beverly, who had become a dear friend. About Maria, whose catering company had catered this very wedding. About Daniel, who had landscaped the clinic's garden. About all the lives interconnected through acts of kindness. Shanice came over to where Catherine and Thomas sat today. "Thank you for being here. Thank you for everything." Catherine stood and hugged her. "Thank you for stopping that night. Thank you for reminding me what really matters." "I think we both learned something," Shanice said with a smile. "You learned about kindness from someone you did not expect. I learned that accepting help is not weakness. It is wisdom." "And now look at you," Thomas said. "A nurse practitioner. A business owner. About to start a family. You have accomplished so much." "Because someone believed in me," Shanice said simply. "Now I get to do the same for others." As the sun set over Nashville that evening, Catherine thought about all the moments that had led to this one. A rainy night. A stuck car. A young woman who chose to stop. Such a small decision with such enormous consequences. She thought about the Foundation's latest project, a partnership with 5 other cities to replicate their model. She thought about the scholarship program that now bore Shanice's name. She thought about all the lives yet to be touched, all the dreams yet to be realized. Thomas put his arm around her. "What are you thinking about?" "About mud," Catherine said with a laugh. "About how sometimes getting stuck is the best thing that can happen to you. Because being stuck forces you to accept help. And accepting help reminds you that we all need each other." "From mud to miracles," Thomas said softly. "From strangers to family," Catherine added. They watched as Shanice and Christopher danced their first dance as a married couple, surrounded by a community that loved them. The Bennett Foundation had grown beyond anything Catherine and Thomas had imagined, but it had started with one simple choice. The choice to help. The choice to believe. The choice to see potential where others saw problems. Catherine knew there would be more challenges ahead, more skeptics to convince, more obstacles to overcome. But she also knew that kindness was contagious, that generosity multiplied, that hope could transform the hardest circumstances into unexpected blessings. And it all began because a young woman in an old pickup truck decided to stop when everyone else drove by. Because Shanice Williams saw someone stuck in the mud and chose to help, not knowing that this one act would change countless lives, including her own. The world needed more people like Shanice, Catherine thought. More people willing to stop, to help, to believe in strangers. And maybe, just maybe, the Bennett Foundation could help create that world, one person, one dream, one act of kindness at a time.